but I thought I would talk about my favorite chapter, which is the chapter on Abraham Lincoln. We all know that Abraham Lincoln was a big reader. This is a picture of the famous John Ford film, and you can see Lincoln on the frontier in Indiana or Illinois reading a book. Like that might be the first image that comes to mind when we think of Abraham Lincoln. But how many of us know that Abraham Lincoln was the first presidential candidate to publish a book in his own words? I certainly didn't know that before I started digging into this. And if you read most of the big biographies on Lincoln, you're not going to find this story. But what I found was that Lincoln worked very hard behind the scenes to publish a book, and that this book ended up helping him become president in 1860. It's really a fascinating story, and I think it tells us a lot about Lincoln as a person as well. So the book is called Political Debates Between Abraham Lincoln and Stephen A. Douglas, and it was based on the debates that they had in 1858. You all have probably heard of these before, of course, right? The Lincoln-Douglas debates, where they would meet outside and thousands of people would come. Lincoln and Douglas were running for the U.S. Senate in Illinois, and they would debate the big issues of the day. And really, there was only one issue of the day at this point, and it was slavery, and whether or not slavery should continue and spread throughout the country. And if you read those debates, as an aside, it's fascinating how much Jefferson and his book, Notes on the State of Virginia, come up, because they were arguing about, are Black people inferior to white people genetically? And that's an argument that we would not endorse or support today. It's an argument that we would rebuke. But in the 19th century, it was an argument that was very persuasive and to white people. And one reason it was persuasive is because Jefferson had written about it in his book. So in the 19th century, Southern thinkers and critics would constantly cite Jefferson and say, there's this great president. He wrote a book. In this book, he talks about how Black people are genetically inferior. And that's just another example of how presidents and their books and their ideas have had a huge impact on American history. So much of the debate about Black people and whether they were inferior or whether slavery impeded them or anything else like that could be traced back to Jefferson and his book. So that was one of the things they were talking about in 1858. But in these debates, Douglas sort of treated them like debates. He was like, there's a lot of people here, they're listening to it. I'm just going to repeat myself at each stop because, it's going to be a different audience at each stop. But Lincoln had a different way of thinking about things. He knew that, yes, 10,000 people might be here listening to me talk now, but a much larger number of people will read this in newspapers in the coming days. And so Lincoln actually tried to build an argument from one debate to the next and sort of craft this broader rhetorical push. And he was able to do that. And he got the better of Douglas in the debates, especially in the newspaper versions, because he could think in those ways.